the rain has well and truly stopped play out in the garden, so I thought I'd come inside and sort out my houseplants. This, as if you didn't know, is a cheese plant. And now, late winter, early spring, is the perfect time to pot them on. And I know this because although it's cold outdoors and not much is growing, well, spring has sprung inside the house and there's new leaves popping up on this old thing all over the place. Because this is the start of the growing season, if I get this into a slightly bigger container, I'll be able to get some much larger leaves on this through the summer. The thing about cheese plants is that they'll quite happily sit in a small container for a long time. That's because of how they live out their lives in the jungles of Mexico and South America. You see, they're lianas. And when their seed falls on the jungle floor, it sprouts and it has the ability to sit there for a very long time before conditions are right for the plant to grow. Those conditions being something above it, making a gap in the jungle canopy, allowing light down onto the jungle floor for these things to romp away and then climb up into the trees. You see, you can always tell whether a cheese plant is getting enough light or not by the shape of the leaves. If they're just heart-shaped and pretty much solid like that, guaranteed this plant is in its sitting phase, as if it's on that jungle floor waiting for the sunshine. And it can do that for years. Give it enough light though, and that's when you get the cuts or the fenestrations. These things, just so as you know, they form because the plant itself is so thick and dense. If it didn't have cuts in the leaves, when water fell on the foliage, it was shed away from the roots of the cheese plant. These cuts allow a bit of sunlight through to the lower leaves, but they also guide the water back onto the trunk of the tree and then down to the root of the plant. So it's never starved of water. Can't have escaped your notice that they have these wiry aerial roots. And of course, in their jungle homes, the air is very humid and they're gathering H2O from that air all the time. So potting on, a couple of things to know. You don't need a massive new container. You just want to go up in size. I'm trying to do this without getting compost everywhere. Never easy indoors, but there it is. The old pot coming off, and I've got the root ball there. Look at that, lovely. You can see that the roots are nice and tightly bound in there, and I'm just going to tease them out a little bit, open them up so they can catch hold and riddle out into the compost of their new container, which I've got here. See, it's not much bigger, right? Just an inch all the way around the outside, a couple of centimetres. You don't want to put these things on too much. And then I've got some peat-free multi-purpose compost. See, this stuff's got lots of lumps and bumps in it. That's ideal. You want a lumpy compost for a tropical house plant like this. They'll really enjoy that. So a few handfuls in the base. Grab hold of the plant and then drop him in the middle. These things get everywhere, and if they really do get on your nerves, the plant won't take any harm if you chop them off. Just use a sharp pair of secateurs and snip them back to where the roots join the stem. However, there is another use for them, particularly for plants that are on the lean like mine. If you chop them so they're no longer reaching out across the carpet, perhaps snip them in half, what you can do with them when you pot the plant on is tuck them down the outside of the container. By pushing them in the pot, they're no longer going to be in your way, not a trip hazard. And they're going to grab hold of the compost and do a great job of pulling your plant back upright. And then with the roots stuffed down the side, pin them in place by stuffing in your compost around the edge of the original root ball. And those roots will establish and start to grow into that fresh compost, and your plant will be a whole lot more stable. And there you have it, compost filled up to within a couple of centimetres of the rim of the container. You don't want to come any more than that, otherwise it's going to be really difficult to keep hydrated. You need enough space between the root ball and then the rim to allow you to pour in plenty of water. Otherwise, when you give them a drink, all the water will flow out over the top of the pot and onto your carpet. Now to get my cheese plant a bit more upright, and to do that I'm going to get rid of the old moss pole, and then replace it with something a bit more stout. look at this beauty. Now moss pole, as the name suggests, well, they originally were moss, but now they're raffia wrapped around a bendy bit of wire with string that holds the raffia in place. You can water them, increase the humidity around your plants, but because they're malleable, you can get them into the compost. You want a nice firm anchor point, and then hook your plant up inside them, get any stray roots tucked down inside the compost, and then wrap them into the moss pole. And what I've got is a helix going on here. I think that'll look good. Also, be very purposeful, keeping the plant corralled and upright. I like this Velcro stuff for tying in house plants. Comes on a roll. You just cut it into 10 centimetres, 4-inch lengths. And then just loop it around your moss pole and your plant and lock it in position. Unlike the pole itself, it's a movable feast, so as the plant grows you can undo it and retie as necessary. So there he is in his old home, but in a new pot, new compost and a new pot cover. These things have a lining in them. That means you don't have to look at the plastic pot, but it catches any water, stop it spilling on your carpet if it runs through the container. Yeah, I'm hoping for some big foliage on this. And talking of which, for large leaves, sunlight is essential, and if you don't have that, you can always get yourself some grow lights. I've got some strips in my front room. They're fantastic, make a big difference through winter for keeping plants healthy. There is another reason why you won't get really massive foliage on your cheese plant. You see, there are two varieties, but they're always sold as the same one, Monstera deliciosa, that's the Latin name. The deliciosa variety has edible fruit. It's grown in botanic gardens, and I kid you not, it has foliage the size of dustbin lids on it. Borsigiana, or Monstera borsigiana, is the commonly sold one. I hope you're keeping up with all of this. But it's always mislabelled. I don't know why, it's just how it is. It's an easier plant to live with, but the foliage at best is 45 centimetres, 1.5 foot across maybe. But beautiful nonetheless, lots of fenestrations. And if you feed like I will, right through the growing season, half-strength tomato fertiliser once a month, you'll have a cheese plant that looks like a living parasol.